Hello and welcome to Beyond Graves and Stars. My name's Andy, a bit of a horror and sci-fi nerd. On this podcast I discuss with a guest horror and sci-fi films, both new and old. On this episode I am going to be discussing the action sci-fi classic Robocop and its not so classic remake from 2014 with Ian Pointer, who is a graphic designer. He's been on the show before. He was on an episode where we compared the Time Machine, the remake, and the original from 1960. He designed our logo for the show, so big thanks for that. Thanks for coming back. We both actually went to the Prince Charles Cinema in London to see the original 1987 classic a few weeks ago. So it was refreshed in our minds, and then we sat down before recording this to see the remake, which I hadn't seen for 11 years since it came out. He hadn't seen it for a while either. Not one I really wanted to go back to, but it's been 11 years. I wasn't a huge fan when I first saw it, so time may have been good to it, but it's nice to sit down and compare the two and see if we can find positives in that remake. There's certainly a lot of positives in the original, so big thanks to Ian for coming back. That Time Machine episode is online now if you haven't listened to that yet. I don't know if I mentioned, we're now on Amazon Music. We've always been on Spotify, so we're still on there. We're on YouTube and we are on Apple Podcasts as well, so plenty of places to find us. You're obviously listening on somewhere, so stick with that. Don't forget to rate the show, share with friends, comment. We want to talk about the films, so I'll get straight to it. Hopefully we'll keep this one under about an hour. I never want to do a podcast that lasts too long, so I don't want to waffle, so straight to that. And then we basically just talk about those two on this show. So I hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoy talking about it and watching them, I've got to be honest. Even the remake. Ian, firstly, thanks for coming back.
Very welcome.
Enjoyed the Time Machine episode. That was a while ago now. Or a while ago we recorded it.
Yeah, it's about, over a month.
Yeah, and it was 2 weeks ago that we went to London to the Prince Charles Cinema to watch Robocop.
Yes, we did.
The original 1987 version.
Fantastic.
Not the first time either of us have seen it.
No.
Was it your first time on the big screen?
First time on the big screen. Yeah.
First time on the big screen. Basically, it was the first 18 certificate movie of your American R-rated movie I ever watched. I shouldn't have done. I was around a parent's friend's house, and basically, I'll watch any video as long as it's PG while we do stuff. And I chose Robocop, the 18. Watched it, loved it, been a massive fan since. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
Well, the thing is, I actually saw the second one first because I was around my friend Sam's. And he had that, and then after that I borrowed the VHS, and then my brother, well, he was underage, we watched the original before that, and so I must have been about what would I have been, 15 probably
yeah,
15, but
so legally too young for it, but to be fair, back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, we got our hands on these action films.
It was different
growing
then,
up. Yeah. The original movie came out in 1987, directed by Paul Verhoeven, who also went on to do Total Recall, which we saw the same day.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Also remade. Might touch on that in another episode at some point. The only one of the franchise he directed. I think it might have been his first American film. I'm not sure, but not overly big budget of a movie. It appears because it was so well made and looks good. 13.7 million it cost, but it did make 53 million, which you got to think for a R-rated movie is quite a bit.
Yeah.
Made by Orion Pictures, who no longer exist, and they're gone. I mean, that's a logo we all recognise from the 80s and 90s. And if you look at the reviews, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is good.
Oh yeah, that is,
7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. And as well as being a commercial hit, it's never really gone away. There's been obviously this remake, which is 11 years ago now, but there's been video games since the remake.
Yes.
And there was a cartoon straight after the movie aimed at kids, which is very strange. I might talk about that in another episode as well at some point. But you got that a lot in the 80s. There was a cartoon based on Rambo, which to us is weird. Police Academy cartoon. The first couple of Police Academy films were 15s over here, I think, are in America. And the weirdest one of all, there was a Toxic Avenger cartoon called The Toxic Crusader.
I did not know that.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Based
know
on
that.
the Troma movie, and they changed it to Toxic Crusader because obviously Toxic Avenger is quite a nasty, very adult film. But as is Robocop, really. But Robocop over the years changed into something more commercial. In the mid-90s, there was a TV series, which I actually quite like. Basically, a real toned-down version of the movie. Less violent, more fun. A bit like in the 90s, there was the Flash TV series, and you had Lois and Clark programs like that.
Yes, yeah.
And the second movie, much like the first, violent, and the third one was only a 15 over here. And one I am going to do a podcast on at some point, but I remember really disliking the third one, even though it's done by a director I really like, who done the Monster Squad. I've only seen it once and remember not liking it. Have you seen the third one?
Oh, I haven't.
You haven't. Oh, okay. But yeah, the original. Just quick, I could sum the plot up. Big company OCP want to bring in robots as police, and there's the big actual robot. I forget the name. E something, isn't it?
Ed 209.
Ed 209. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Ed 209, and sort of one lot of them want to make, and then the others Robocop. Policeman Murphy gets murdered, and basically they own him, so they turn him into
Well, they say
Robocop.
murdered, but it wasn't by. Let's not make this. It wasn't murdered as in like assassinated by the police. It was through a gangster squad who kind of just killed him absolutely out of no reason. They just
There was a plot about it, but he was murdered by on the
he
job.
was murdered on the job,
Yeah.
and so that he then became an open source to.
Yeah. So what I'm emphasising is he dies in this one.
Yeah,
Whereas
absolutely.
when we talk about the remake, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
And in the cartoon, he doesn't either. I guess. So he basically comes back from the dead as a robot.
Yes.
And doesn't remember any of his past. But slowly through his partner, weirdly, he only met on that day. He had a new partner.
Yeah.
Played by Nancy Allen Lewis, who, when he comes back as a robot, she almost tries to remind him of himself.
Well, the thing is, she sees the little significance of like the fact that he did like the gun slinging. What's it that gun slinging to his thing, and she saw that and she realised no, that's not.
Yeah, she picks up on the little things.
Your little things.
Because his son is a big fan of a TV show, and there's a certain way the policeman on the show spins his gun round, and Robocop does that, so that shows. And basically, as he gets his memory back, slowly he tracks down the gang who killed him, and that takes down the whole big corporation as well. A classic action film, really well made, I think. Great cast.
Yeah.
It's Peter Weller as Robocop, who's biggish actor, really. He was then.
Yeah.
But I only really know him from this. I've gone back and seen him he was in Naked Lunch and a few other movies.
Yeah.
Have you seen him in much else?
He was in 24. He played in 24 because I watched the whole series of 24. I used to love that.
Yeah.
But I haven't really seen him in anything else. But yeah, great acting.
Yeah. He did return for the sequel, but not the third one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and a great cast of villains as well. You know, you've got Paul McCrane played one who was before that was known as mainly from Fame. He was the nerdy kid. He goes totally against cast in this. And then you've got Kurtwood Smith as Clarence, iconic villain. And even Ray Wise, just before he was in Twin Peaks, is one of the gang as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you've got the old man, who's not a villain, but he owns the company.
Yes.
Played by, is it Dan O'Hurley, who was in, I know him from, he was in Last Starfighter as well, but under a lot of makeup as an alien. But loads of, he'd been around for years before this. And Dick Jones, Donnie Cox, who is the main sort of head of the villains, he works for who, I didn't realise this because I know him from Total Recall as well, he's kind of villainous in that.
Yeah.
But he was known as like Mr. Nice Guy on TV and stuff, and was like the cheesy, friendly character. And he was, it must have been in his 50s or 60s when he made this. So he'd been around for a while, and apparently he loved that. He loved being the villain.
Yeah. He played it well.
He did play it well. But this thing, you can tell that the cast are actually, especially the villains, you can tell they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Because over the top, there's one of the gang has got this ridiculous laugh that he keeps doing. But you can sort of tell that the actors are enjoying doing it, but the villains are supposed to be enjoying committing crimes, killing people, being violent, and it really comes across well. I think it works. Visually, I think the whole movie looks great. Set in the future.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it's undetermined whenabouts in the future.
Nah,
Just kind of like just
yeah.
a near future. Yeah.
But also for 1987, certain things of it are very 80s. But it's not over the top 80s future like a lot of things made then.
They weren't playing loads of like 80s tunes and stuff like that.
Nah.
It wasn't like a lot of the 80s films where they did sort of throw in a lot of 80s pop music to sort of make it. It wasn't. It was a unique soundtrack, which by the way was fantastic. It was,
mainly the score, wasn't it?
The score, yeah.
Which I
can't remember
I can't think who done it. I made a note of who done it, and I can't read my handwriting. It's Basil someone, but he's the same guy who done the first Conan movie and the Iron Eagle franchise music.
Right.
So he done quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those, like I say, 18 certificate. It wasn't. It was written for the screen. It wasn't based on a book, a comic, anything. Which is quite unique, really. I mean, you had it more then, around the same time Terminator was the same Predator. Nowadays, everything seems to be either a remake or from an existing other medium. Yeah. And apparently the director, when he was offered it, sort of read the first few pages and was like, no, I'm not doing this, it's stupid, because of the name Robocop. And I think he saw it as more of a silly B movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think it was his wife who finished the script and sort of said to him, no, you've got to do this. It's got something behind it, because as well as the action side of it and the fun side of the film and violence, there's a lot of satire in it and it's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
Not just about America, because there is a lot of that, but about the media as well. Because throughout the film, you see almost through the news and stuff on TV, and it goes away from the original plot and says these other stories about what's going on in the world at the time, and it's got a lot to say with humour. And then there's silly adverts as well, like Nukem,
the Nukem advert,
which is basically battleships, but you nuke a country instead of blowing up a ship. And found out last night when just watching stuff about it that there was a company called Nukem. I don't know what it was, and they sued and won, and so they had to pay some money to this company.
Oh dear.
So they probably should have checked that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this first time you've seen it on the big screen, it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, did that bring any more to it for you watching it?
I think it did. I think a little bit. It was. I think really. I mean, it was when I first watched it. It was mostly watching portions of it that I liked, but watching it as a single narrative all the way through this, and it. There were bits that when I was young I missed, and it did bring, but also the surround sound in the cinema was phenomenal. You could and I was looking around going, okay, so there's someone's coming around here, and it made me realise, you really do get these great films that have been done and they're great, and you do need to watch them again at the cinema. You do need to see them again, and so what else did it add? I think really is just the whole spectacle of it being there on the big screen.
Yeah, and towards the beginning of the film when he's killed, there's quite a famous scene of where it's just brutally violent.
Yes.
And that was one of the things they had trouble with the censor and this, that, and the other.
Sure.
And still hits hard now, all these years later, because it was made in '87, so it's nearly 40 years old.
Yeah.
But you see his hand physically get blown off.
Yeah.
Firstly, did that have more impact on the big screen for you?
Yes.
And definitely, quick answer but true, did me. Not the first time I've seen it in the cinema, but I pick up on it more when I watch it in the cinema.
Absolutely.
And how do you think the effects of that hold up?
They're fantastic. I mean, of that particular scene, do you mean?
Yeah, that.
No, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
And I even observed how, like, in reality, he would have had to have tucked his arm behind his back.
Yeah.
But it was done so well. The camera angles and the way that, you know, the limb was hanging. It was like it was put together really, really well. It was filmed very well, and I think they hold up very well.
Yeah. Most of the effects do, I think. I mean, the practical effects. There's that, and then another famous scene at the end where I believe you could buy an action figure of both of these. Actually, a guy gets, I think it's Clarence, gets covered in acid. And then hit by a car.
Yeah.
And when he's covered in acid, his skin starts to melt, and he looks a bit like I mentioned earlier in Toxic Avenger, but with a bigger budget, so it looks more realistic. And then he gets hit by a car and splatters everywhere. That's to say that looks fantastic. Sounds morbid, but you know what I mean.
It
very effective. Holds up really well. There's a few bits people criticise. At the very end, we do spoilers. Dick Jones falls off a building, but even the special effects guys in the documentary said they're not too proud of how that looks.
Oh yeah.
But that's firstly, in the '80s, every villain had to either fall down a pit or off a building. That's just what happened.
Yes.
With this, it's done by computer, isn't it? It's done early special effects. Or is it? Was it a bit?
No, I think it was. I don't know really.
Was it sort of claymation types?
Yeah, well,
because they said that they weren't happy these arms looked too long, which is true.
Well, no. What happened? I think they took a photo looking down at the street of this particular building, and then they did a green screen of dropping this doll into the thing, and then merged the two. But the doll was so ridiculously.
Well, it looks a bit, the body of it a bit Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Sort of a bit stop motion. Because they use stop motion for
Ed 209 or the Ed robots. Yeah.
Which I think looks good because it looks creepier.
Yeah.
And now in the remake which we mentioned a bit, that's all CGI. But the movement when it's done stop motion, like an old Ray Harryhausen movie, or
it was creepy
as hell,
very creepy.
And added by they put like a mismatch of animal noises for the noises when Ed 209 falls over. Sounds great. I love the whole sound effects on all Robocop and the other machines in it. It really feels real to me, and it adds a lot to it. When you see him move and hear that, it makes it feel more real than if he just moved naturally. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole just look and feel of it, I think, to me, feels real.
Yeah.
Even scenes like watching it back to back with the remake, when they go into the police station early doors, when you first meet Murphy, everyone in that police station seems like police would in a city like that, stressed.
Yes.
There's anxiety. And all under a lot of pressure. And in the newer one, there's not the subplot of police wanting to strike.
I agree. I agree.
And to me, that adds more to it, and you feel for not just the Murphy and the people it's just everyone in the whole police station. There's something going on. It feels real to me.
Yeah, I mean that new Detroit, which is what it's kind of called. It's just like the police were just fed up with the crime, fed up with the government, fed up with everything, right? So when this robot comes walking in, they're just like, oh, what now?
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, all right, go to the back room, do what you're doing, and they're just like they can't be bothered to entertain anything.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of like the undertone. We really, I think with the first one, we really got a feel for the undertone of New Detroit and what they are going through, and what political issues they've got, and an idea of this robot cop coming in.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, goodness sake.
Yeah.
Oh,
But-
I just give up, you know.
Yeah. Two things to add to that, though. Firstly, because they're talking about striking, there's more reason for them to bring a Robocop in
Yeah,
than in the remake.
yeah,
But also, you said about the way they're acting. There's a bit what always hits home with me whenever I watch it. An officer, they say he's in hospital, and they say he's died, and then they say a name of another officer. We'll be making a collection for the family as usual. So they say it so casually, like police
Yeah.
are just dying.
it just happens all the time.
Yeah, they're sort of, it's another thing what happens.
Another empty locker.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, it's so the whole film feels gritty, and like violence is just a thing that happens.
Yes. And it's about the police, you know. It's about the law enforcement. The original film is about the law enforcement and the political support, and the, you know, it's definitely different than what we see in what we'll say in a second.
And like I said before about how it keeps going to the media, and the media reflect this, and they're kind of it goes from a really serious story to a light-hearted story,
Yeah.
as if that's the way that we're shown what real life violence is like. That's clearly what it's getting at.
Yeah.
But one thing you pointed out after we saw it, that you'd forgotten how funny it was. And
I did.
And I think a lot of people do. It's not till you rewatch it do you realise it is a comedy, just a dark one.
It is dark. It is dark, but it's the balance, isn't it? It's just like it's a comic relief. You know, you feel you're watching these sort of like somewhat serious issues, and then you get like this, like a commercial come up that just makes you think, how does this even fit in?
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, that's the way of the world, isn't it? That's
Yeah. Well, one of the fake commercials in it, there's a dinosaur, and that's done by stop motion, advertising a car or something.
Okay.
And apparently on an early screening, one of the people at the studio thought they put the wrong reel in and another film had come on. Now, good, because it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to take you out and put you back in. But so much of the comedy work, it flicks to a sitcom now and then as well, which the characters keep quoting. A scene I really like, which always makes me laugh, is when one of the sort of Weasleyer guy, the younger guy at OCP, is in the bathroom slagging off Dick Jones, who's in charge, and he's they're talking to somebody at urinal, and he's in the cubicle, Dick Jones, and the reaction from everybody else who's petrified of him, pure comedy there. One of them doesn't even zip up in time, and you see a wet stain on his toes. And it's such a perfect balance of action, satire, and comedy that I think it's generally. Going to ask you your rating of it. I'll say no. For me, this is a 5-star film.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say. Well, for me, and we're just doing the rating at the moment, but I mean, it's hard to rate 5-star based on the sort of criteria that you want. But yeah, that thing you said about his name was Miguel Ferrers. I think it was his character, Miguel Ferrers, and we've seen him in a couple of other things, and he was brilliant. But
recently, a few years ago, passed away, didn't he?
2017, I think.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, ish.
He was in a lot in the 90s TV.
He was in lots of.
Do you remember him in Hot Shots Part Two?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's great. He was
yeah. War. It's fantastic. Yeah. We'll get into that another day.
I won't be doing a podcast on Hot Shots Part Two. Not on this show. Anyway.
I might be. But the first one is just. Well, I say the first one. The original Robocop was great because of the things that it addressed.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really, really like about it, or that I really sort of like see as significant about it is the fact that when he was legally dead, his family, yes, they were mortified, but they moved on.
Yeah.
And they moved on, and they did a thing. And he understood that when he started to realise as a Robocop that his family moved on. He's like, well, he's thinking, oh, they should move on.
Yeah.
They should, because I'm not the person I was.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't really like about this one. It's just that they tried to keep him as a loving husband. You know.
Yeah, I'll talk about the new one in a sec. It's just one thing I was going to connect it with is two of the writers of the original are credited as writing the remake, but I don't know whether that's just because it's the source material. It could be, couldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it says it's a writer, they don't actually write it.
Or maybe it's not Miguel Ferrers. Sorry, I think it was that was played by Michael. So anyway, carry on.
I was just looking to see if there's any real connections between the two movies. But I think I've been mistaken, and the writers, it's just because that they wrote the original, they've got a writing credit. It's Miguel Ferrer is the actor's name.
It is Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was confused. I thought that they'd. Yeah, so it's one thing that bothers me about the remake. Often, if a remake's going to be good and it's in the same, because the remake would have been 25 years later.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd bring in more of the original people as a tribute, or they'd want to be involved. Like you'll get like when we talk about Time Machine. One of the actors who was getting on at that point was in the movie.
Yeah.
But you don't get any of that in the remake. It's like they've told me there's a few little. I mean, I really enjoyed it when you hear a bit of the original score in the remake.
The thing is, you hear that, like you hear a little bit of that in the film, but like
not
you get the intro of that, and you think, right, these are fans. The people who have made this are fans.
Yeah.
They know what the audience are expecting, and yet they didn't carry it through.
Yeah, so we'll move on to talk about the remake now. But disappointing because it starts with a TV news show presented by Novak, it's called. It's presented by Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
So the opening scene, it starts quite light-hearted because the noise of the lion from the intro of whatever MGM isn't it, whatever, and then that turns into a bit of a joke that it's Samuel L. Jackson presenting this show.
Yeah. Sort of getting ready for his vocals.
So you say and so you'd think, okay, so there's going to be the comedy, and now and then it tries, but nothing like the original.
No.
And it's just Samuel L. Jackson. I like Samuel L. Jackson. Don't get me wrong. He does exactly what he's paid for in this film. He's there as Samuel L. Jackson, doing nothing different to what he normally does. He's an angry TV presenter.
But he obviously didn't need to be on set because he was just he was doing it remotely.
That's true. Yeah, see, and he's not in a lot of it. He's one of the names they've got in to draw people in, I think. So should we quickly go over the plot? It's sort of a watered down version of
I think you can go over it pretty quickly, to be honest.
It was in this one. Same sort of thing with they want to in this one take over the police completely by robots. There's a vote put to Parliament or whatever, and they don't want it because they don't trust robots. So they come up with the idea of combining a robot with a human, so hence Robocop. In this one, Murphy, same character name.
It is,
doesn't die, is injured. And that's important to remember in the comparison because when they make him Robocop, I'm really summarising this, he remembers everything. So he remembers his family. Yeah. And there's a lot of his wife and trying to, him meeting up with his wife and all.
Well, she authorised it.
Yeah, she did. But once he's Robocop, there's a lot of her.
Yeah.
They've added that to the story, which I don't think is really needed.
No.
In the first one, the fact that the family's moved on is heartbreaking, but it hits home. Yeah. And you see little flashbacks of it. You don't even see a scene with him properly as Robocop with them. Doesn't help that the little kid who plays his son's really annoying in this.
Yeah.
What the wife does fine is it Abby Cornish? Is that her name? She was in quite a bit of stuff a few years ago, but fine. But not given much to do with the character. She's just a wife missing her husband. Yeah, it's Abby Cornish. She's in quite a bit of stuff, actually. I think she might even be a British actress. Australian. So she's probably been in Neighbours, hasn't she? They all have been. But Robocop, played by Joel Kinnaman, isn't it? Is that his name?
Joel Kinnaman, yeah.
Joel Kinnaman, who he's been in loads of action films.
He has.
Both Suicide Squads. But then since this movie, really, it's been a lot of straight to streaming and DVD action.
It has. He was in the
Girl Dragon Tattoo?
No. There was a series on
TV.
On Netflix. Oh my goodness.
The Killing?
No. He was brilliant, and that's the first play.
So this might be where I don't know much, because if he's done a lot of TV.
Killing is when I first saw him. It's to do with when you can transfer your brain into another person. It was oh my goodness.
It's not that, but he was in House of Cards as well, which was big.
Oh, was he in House of Cards? I didn't see all of House of Cards.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, with his career, it looked like he was up and coming, and then made this and kind of didn't get any further. But as movies go, as budget wise and stuff, it cost it says 100 to 130 million.
Right.
Okay. But it made obviously this is years after the original. It made 242 million. So to make a profit, you've got to basically double your budget.
Yeah.
So if it cost 100 million, they've made a bit of money, but not a lot. And if it didn't make money. But there was rumours for a few years after that they were going to do a sequel, and I think possibly they had made enough money, and it might have done really well on DVD and streaming, which it probably did, to be honest. But because of negative reviews and feedback, they decided not to do it.
Not to pursue it.
And since then, there's been rumours of another sequel to the original franchise, because of a video game or something that Peter Weller's been involved with.
Yeah,
so there might be he's getting on now.
Altered Carbon is the is the series I was.
Oh yes, I remember that was on.
Altered Carbon. That was Sky, excellent. I didn't see the second season, so I can't comment on that. But the first, So he's a great actor. I don't think he was the best choice for this role. To be honest, I think they could have found someone else. But at least he added something, Yeah,
I mean, I think the faults of the character in this, and there's a few bits where there's stuff going on. His facial reactions seemed a bit odd, but I'd blame that on the direction opposed to him. And the director, Brazilian director, who'd done a series of films called Elite Squad, and I don't think he's done much else since. I think he might have gone into TV. Interesting idea, because these films are criticised in America, so to speak, but both the original and the remake, the directors come from other countries. So I think that really works in the original, because that's his view on how he sees it.
Interesting, yeah.
And I think that's probably why they've gone for someone as well for the same sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe he had a lot to say, but I think the main trouble with this movie is it's so 12 certificate PG-13.
Yeah.
That it really, most of the action in it is Robocop training.
Well, that's right. But what I think if they're going to do that, that's fine. But the biggest ingredient there that they're missing is humour.
Yeah.
Why not just add a bit of humour? Joel Kinnaman could have nailed that.
Yeah. This might be a reason why I am a fan of a lot of people aren't, but a fan of the 90s TV series, because obviously it couldn't be violent because it was made for mainstream TV, but the humour was still there. And the characters there's more to the fun characters, likeable characters. Everyone in this seems so 2D to me, like I mentioned with the wife. And what a wasted cast as well. I mean, Gary Oldman actually I thought was quite good.
Gary Oldman always carries his roles well.
Yeah, and he's like he's in a better film. He's basically the guy who does that makes the robot, the creator.
Yeah.
And he's likeable, enthusiastic, and really going for some scenes where he's really proper acting. Do you know what I mean? But then you've got people like Jackie Earle Haley, who is basically like a a cop in it who doesn't like Robocop, keeps calling him Tin Man, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he can be a good actor. In Watchmen he was great. Then don't watch a remake with him basically, because he was the Freddy Krueger in the remake of that, which I think was worse than this. But, which I know I bought it cheap recently to do a comparison at some point. But can't fault him in that film. He's actually all right in it.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, I just thought, I don't know, he just annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah.
Even Michael Keaton, who I'm a massive fan of.
He's very vanilla in this.
Just wasted, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not given anything to do. He's just bad guy.
He even looks bored in some scenes.
Yeah,
he's just
right,
like, even he's like, I've got to do this, have I? You know, it's like, even he's bored.
Yeah. But the thing is that it's got quite a high budget, but most of that must have gone on the cast.
It's such a shame, you know, because like with the original, you had his colleague who he only knew for a little while, Anne Lewis, who sort of really he didn't have any kind of friend. Yeah. Well, he had that guy, the black guy. But he didn't really.
Lewis, wasn't it? That was his.
Was that the alternative?
Yeah, because Lewis. Because they called because at the beginning, they're both called Lewis, and nothing against whoever plays Lewis in the remake. I'm not going to look it up. Fine, but not that much of a likable character. The guy can act, but there's nothing to it. Whereas you really see in Nancy Allen in the original, just the empathy. She's a likable, and it's such a good character because this is the 80s, and you've got a tough female cop. And I say it's quite. At first, I was like, "Why have they made it a bloke?" But it shows that in the original, it could have been a male cop, and that was deliberate. On the commentary for the original RoboCop, he said that he wanted to do more things like, which he later done in Starship Troopers. When you go in the dressing room, it's what's the word? Both sexes changing together, and like it's exactly the same, and they couldn't quite. There's some reason I think people were just arguing it. Unisex, that's what I was looking for. Mine goes blank when you record.
That's all right.
So they've made him a bloke in this, which whatever, but it just made emphasise how ahead of the time the original one was for me.
Oh yeah.
You know,
and how like what priorities were different, and for the narrative of the film.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed in this, that when the action's happening, they blast some rock tunes out, and don't get me wrong, I like Hocus Pocus by Focus quite a lot. It's a banger, right? Yeah. But it took me out of the film when that was playing during an action sequence. And what was the song on the end credits as well? There was over the end credits, there was a sort of pop song playing.
There was, I can't recall right now.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that's not RoboCop. You have a pop song when they go into like in the first one, they go into a nightclub.
Why didn't they end with this do 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 do?
Yeah, there was and at the end of the original, when they ask him his name, he says Murphy. They said, everyone cheers, don't they?
Yeah.
If you don't do Inferno, you do Inside. And this one just sort of, it's so built for a sequel.
Yeah.
You see the shot of always being repaired.
Yeah.
And another thing, it's only 11 years old. We mentioned how the falling off the building in the original doesn't look great, but so many of the special effects in this didn't look great to me.
No, they didn't. And to be honest, those new sort of versions of the Ed 209 which were in there, and they didn't put much emphasis on that actually.
No, that's just a nod, isn't it?
That was just a nod. But I kind of, when I was watching it just now, I was thinking, if they'd have done it like they did in Beetlejuice, where they made it look like it was stop motion, that would have been so great.
Yeah,
that would have added something to it. Yeah. But I mean, they probably didn't think of it back then because everything needed to be clean and clear. Yeah. But
you're right. Yeah, and
I think if they'd have done that, I probably would have felt much more nostalgic to.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And if they ever do another sequel, I hope that's what they do. They probably will, actually, because Beetlejuice worked. Everyone liked that, and there's a lot of people have mentioned in the reviews how cool that is.
Yeah.
And also, everyone is kind of getting sick of CGI, but in this as well, a lot of the CGI, just like when you see a shot over the city, it clearly wasn't real.
Yeah.
And there was planes flying by that weren't real for no reason. Yeah. They weren't relative to the plot.
So, I did see that there was many things on the scene which physically wouldn't actually work. It didn't feel like it was an actual buzzing city. It just felt like it was someone had gone onto like a 3D application and done like an AI. I know it wasn't AI then, but it just pasted a few things.
Yeah. But also his suit in the original, it's a real. It took him ages to get in, and Peter Weller complained about it. Blah blah blah. But it looked real. Whereas in this, it's clearly CGI.
Yeah.
He's wearing spandex or something over it.
Yeah.
The actor, and then it's just it. But you can tell that.
Yeah.
So a big budget film like this, make a suit for him. He's Robocop.
Yeah.
There's a nice little bit though when you do see very briefly a different version of the suit, what looks exactly like the old one. That's quite nice.
There is a couple of nods. Yeah, not as many as there should be, but there are a couple of nods.
Well, someone says because there's the quote from the sitcom they're watching the original. I'll buy that for $1.
Oh no, that was I wouldn't buy that for $1 when they're putting him together.
Done a twist on that, and at the very end he does say, "Dead or alive, you'll come over me," which is a big line from the original.
Well, it is a big line, but the thing is that was very relevant in the original film because he said that because in his brain he associated that person he was looking at with the last thing he said to him, or one of the last things he said. But yes, they did. There were a few nods.
And the nods weren't. Sometimes nods in films seem forced. I mean, I'm not a hater of the sequels to Terminator. A lot of people are, as in after Terminator 2. But it really bugs me that in every film they have to shoehorn in someone saying, "Come with me if you want to live." In every sequel. And it just seems forced.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it was a nice little nod, but it could just pass you by and you not think about it.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem too shoehorned in.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been 11 years since I've seen this, and even though I'm moaning like hell about it, I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
I think the suit. I say suit. I think his what would you call it? The whole form looked good. The black did look good, and I see why. They were bringing a new sort of spin to it. They had some unnecessary quips in regards to him turning black rather than that was not necessary in my opinion. But it did look cool. I mean, it did. There were some really cool scenes, but it was the execution.
Yeah. I was just probably looking slick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, like I say, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I was trying to, even though this is a comparison, imagine if the original film didn't exist, would I enjoy this film? And the answer is yes, because I'm not comparing it to something that already exists. Unfortunately, there's no getting around that what already exists is better. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So, if you was to not see any of these movies, I reckon someone would enjoy this movie, and then watch the original and be like, okay, well, the original is better.
Yeah.
Whereas in a lot of things, nowadays, another reason I like comparing films is some remakes, I generally think if you watch them first, you may enjoy more than the original.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I don't think you would.
No.
But you'd get more out of it.
Yeah.
It also felt quite long, I will say. Towards the end, I was like...
It was long, yeah.
It actually wasn't.
Like you say, it felt long.
Yeah.
It did. It really did. It really did feel long. I think I nodded off first.
Because it's 2 hours 1 minute, and then there was quite a bit of credits, so I reckon an hour 55.
Yeah.
And the beginning's fair, and then towards the end, when you sort of know where it's all going, I was just like, all right, wrap it up. Whereas the original one is an hour 40, but feels shorter, in my opinion, because it's just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It is.
You're on board with him with the first one, right?
Yeah.
You feel you're kind of on his journey with him, and the way that he goes off by himself in the car, you feel like you're with him.
Yeah.
On his journey, but this one, I didn't get that.
Well, it really misses. We mentioned the comedy, but it misses him rediscovering himself, which is a big part of the first one. Whereas in this, that's not there at all.
No.
So
he's still 100% him, just without the limb.
Yeah. But I think all that is deliberate to keep it at a lower certificate.
I think there was another subtle sort of little nod. maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But when they first sort of when you see that they put him together in this thing, and he's got his right hand, I remember in the first one they say we saved his right arm.
Yeah.
And I thought that might have been a nod, but then I realised they didn't actually have the rest of his arm. I don't know, but it was.
Yeah, well, one thing is, when I first saw it, I thought when you just see his head, and then there's like the brain, and you see a bit of like his lung.
Oh yeah, the separation of the body.
At the time, I thought that looked really cool.
Actually, it does look cool.
It
does look cool.
Nah, I think the brain looks good, but the bottom bit, it just looks computery.
But if you, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, but he was talking, and his lungs were inhaling.
Yeah. But do you not think that they look computer generated, the lungs?
Oh yeah.
The brain bit looked good.
No, but the concept of that and that breakaway.
Yeah, I mean that's cool.
That could have been a really iconic like part of it and a real reality shock. Yeah.
But ruined by CGI.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The CGI was just.
I've not seen the second one for ages, but is there not like a brain or something in the second one?
Yes, yeah,
so that's a bit of a nod.
That was Kane, because when at the end of the spoilers, Kane at the end of he realizes Robocop jumps on top of his version of Ed 209 and goes right. He puts his arm right into the core and pulls out Kane's brain. And then he puts it on the floor and Kane watches him smash it. It was brilliant.
So I've not seen the second one for about 20 years.
Oh no, it's great. It's great.
So not since I bought the box set, which is here somewhere.
Yeah, the box set.
1, 2, and 3 on DVD. Yeah. I got it from a supermarket late night on my way home from a pub. I remember that quite. I don't remember. I remember it in the morning waking up and it was there. So, but yeah, so. I don't know, it's 11 years later. It
hasn't improved.
I enjoyed it more than I did before, but it hasn't improved. It's just I tried harder to look at it.
Yeah.
I'd give it. I don't know. Before this viewing, it's a 1 out of 5. It's a low 2 now.
I would say it. I was going to say 2.3.
Yeah. And it is kind of forgotten, and I don't know. I don't even really feel sorry for anyone in it, right, or anyone involved, because it was clearly made as a moneymaker to start the franchise up again, to sell action figures and to as a moneymaker, and it's a shame. But positives. Gary Oldman, a few of the action scenes are all right.
I thought there were some good effects in it. There were some bad effects. They must have had multiple studios doing their effects.
Well, it might have actually been, with a big budget film, they might have had a certain release date, so some of the effects were rushed more than the others.
Again, you've got all of this.
Yeah. So, not terrible, but just not that good.
I think there's two things majorly wrong with it. Very lacking in humour.
Yeah.
And lacking in the silly adverts.
Yeah. And also, the little bit of humour they do try isn't very funny.
No, I know.
Which is a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
All in all, 2 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, I'm glad they didn't do any more. But I would like to see something else for the franchise. And they've got to remember that it's not movie-wise, it's not aimed at kids. We want to see a bit of dark humour and violence. So
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's always great to watch a film with you, and it's you do need to watch it and sort of decide for yourself. But it's for me, it's not something that's going to be a classic or anything. I mean, it's over 10 years now, but I mean, when we watched the original one the other day, I was just like, this is it. This is filmmaking. This is great.
Yeah, it's just the thing. It's like we compared the Time Machine a while ago. It's like the first one's iconic.
It is, absolutely.
But the second one, they put a different spin on it, and it was long enough in between.
Yeah,
because that was 40 years in between.
Yeah, I think so. Probably about
and effects had come a long way.
Yeah,
and they put there's more thought and love gone into it.
Yeah,
and that's why that film bombed. Probably didn't make as much money as this, but it's a lot better. The remake of Time Machine, I'd say, is 10 times better than the remake of Robocop.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it was a different spin on the concept, really. But
Yeah.
so I would say 2 point. If we're doing points, I'll say 2.5. I think yeah, that's a little bit more than you give it, but
I'd give it a 2.
2.5.
Yeah. So, but still, it's more better than I thought. But I will say that the point of this podcast is to find things we like about the movies. I think because there's so much negativity about film reviewing and stuff online at the moment. Well, it has been since online existed.
Yeah.
So I hope I haven't shouted it too much. Because I tried to bring the positives.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we just sort of, at the end of the day, it's only our opinion. You make of it what you will, but we love films, and every film deserves an opportunity. Really,
Exactly. So we want to know what your thoughts on this is. If you're a fan of the original, do you prefer the remake? Are you something coming to the? So comment on all the platforms. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's the thing, isn't it? On YouTube.
It is. Yeah, like and subscribe.
Follow on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music.
Amazon Music. Yes.
Yeah. So it's on all 4. And briefly mentioned it before last time, but you're working on a podcast.
I am. Yes, I'm starting soon. That'll be I'm already gathering the things, and my stuff's going to be more about sort of time related narratives. So things could be time travel, or it could be it could be things where you like Memento, where you're jumping back to different. So I always find those fascinating, and those are the ones that I'm going to be doing. But I'm not going to reveal much more than that right now.
I'm not saying do it, but would something like, say, you've seen California Man, where caveman's frozen and wakes up in the future? Would that count?
That qualifies.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, that qualifies, because it's that displacement of time.
Yeah, so I mentioned on the last time we talked about a film called Just Visiting, which is a remake of a French film where I think they're Vikings or something, wake up now. It's like a comedy. That's one I recommend to you.
And Hot Tub Time Machine I haven't seen yet. That's another.
Chevy Chase. There we go.
So wonderful. Yes. But that said, I really enjoyed watching it today.
Cool. Yeah, it's been fun. And like I say, I want to know everyone's thoughts. And if you do disagree, let's chat about it. You don't all like the same thing.
No. I'm curious. If someone really rates the film, then please do.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for joining me again. And we mentioned on the last one, we're going to focus on all 4 of the House films at some point.
Yes.
Get more into horror.
Not to be confused with the series. This is the
oh yeah,
there was a house, but no, we're talking about the house horror. They're not really horror. They're hammy horror.
I'd say comedy horror.
Comedy horror. Yeah.
So we'll be talking about them very soon. Thank you very much, Ian.